popping, y'all? So today I wanted to broach a topic in regards to following up with everything we learned about in Benjamin Franklin's video we did, where I pretty much showed where Benjamin Franklin was describing the Swedes, the Dutch, the French, the Irish, the Scottish, the people of Wales, who are called the Welsh, people of Britain, so on and so forth, Germany. They were all described as swarthy, which we know is so-called black. And we also looked into those so-called black people coming in migrations coming over here to the Americas. And they gave us a list in that book we read, the 1745 passenger list, that showed so-called black people coming from Ireland and Scotland in particular, going to the Caribbean and North America. So this article was about Black Lives Matter in 2020. They had their movement out there after the George Floyd incidents happened that we all were aware of or saw and witnessed. And they wanted to get rid of the black images of people from ancient Europe. One has to wonder why. They claim that it was racism. How could it be racism if this is a part of history? We don't remove George Washington from history under the assumption that he's so-called Caucasian, which it's debatable, but under that assumption, at face value, we don't remove him from history because he owned slaves. We don't remove Benjamin Franklin because he had slaves. We don't remove people just because they did bad things or things that we didn't like. So one has to wonder, why are they trying to remove these black images? It's a part of German history. Well, during the Renaissance era, there's something called iconoclasm, which I'll get into another day, where they destroyed the images of all of the black Renaissance art, or so-called black Renaissance art, where they had the Caucasians pretty much starting race wars with the black nobility, kicking us out of Europe. The Marxist revolutions contributed greatly to that, but during this uprising, they were destroying our images, and as they built up their empire, the rise of the Caucasian, the rebirth, which means Renaissance, they were bringing up their images or whitewashing our images, painting over our faces with theirs. So the significance of this article is showing, we're going to find out why they're doing it. So let's get into the article. Black Lives Matter movement fuels racism debate in small German town. Tensions are running high in a debate over the coat of arms in the northern Bavarian town of Coburg. Two women in faraway Berlin have launched a campaign saying it is a racist image with no place in today's world. So one has to wonder, why is this racist? I could see, right? If this brother this is St. Maurice, by the way, who was a knight of Germany. I could see if St. Maurice was dressed as a slave or was an actual slave, in chains around his neck, so on and so forth. But he wasn't. So why would you deem this racist? Let's see what they got to say. It's a sunny day in Coburg Central Market Square. It's a study in harmony and order. The long sides of the square boasts, I'm not going to go through all of this. Let's get to the meat. Let's see. Critics are arguing that the crest includes a racist depiction. St. Maurice, also known as the Coburg Moor, right? Moor means black. We already went over that. Is a black man with attributes clearly viewed by the creator as stereotypical for the people of Black Africa. I have to laugh, right? What? How could Africa be black and Africa at the same time? This is why history is so important. We have to have names that are proper and fitting. You're naming a landmass Black Africa. The people there are so-called black. We know this, right? But we established already that a lot of us in the Americas don't come from West Africa or don't come from Africa. There is a portion of our people that did come from West Africa, but a lot of us were Aboriginal Indians, and another large portion of us were people that came from Europe. And a lot of the people from West Africa, which I'll get into another time, is that a lot of them were Moors that were kicked out from Spain when they lost their rulership. So, and that was to the Ottoman Turks, right? So they're still not even African, quote unquote African. African is not a race, right? The whole purpose of this channel, right, brothers, is help y'all understand we can't move forward as a people. All of this kumbaya, trying to come together. Oh, you know, the white man doing this to us, and we need to all stick together. White supremacy this, white supremacy that. We cannot come together, let alone get reparations, even fight for reparations, by calling ourselves a misnomer or a byword, as the scriptures call it. All right, a byword meaning black, Negro, African American, colored. That's not a race, right? A race literally, and shout out to COJ who put me on this, was race literally means seed line. What seed do you come from? Meaning what tribe? What tribe or lineage, right? Comes through the father. Which is why when women are given into marriage, they take upon the man's last name. They become a part of that tribe, and the children become a part of his lineage, his loins, right? So they first start off with confusion. They give you the truth, right? The so-called Caucasian gives you the truth with mixing of lies. So it's up to us to eat the meat, spit out the bone. We got to decipher this, have discernment. But I'm going to read this part again. Moor is a black man with attributes clearly viewed by the creator or stereotypical for the people of black Africa. Thick lips, a slight underbite, and frizzy hair, as well as a large Creole earring. The image can be seen throughout the town, featured on facades, signs, and even a couple of meters on the top of manhole covers. So they have these images all over Germany. What could be racist if this is what the people look like? They lived there. Do you see a slave chain? No, that's a gold pearl necklace. Like, you see gold hoop earrings, right? This is not a slave. This is not somebody who was not of that town or that region. This is somebody of nobility. So how could this be racist? Let's further read now. It is a discriminatory illustration and a throwback to the colonial era. Say Julian Reuther and Alicia Archie both live in Berlin, but are originally from the Upper Franconia region of Bavaria, where Coburg is located. The two women started an outline petition calling for the coat of arms to be redesigned. I wonder why. And you got to ask yourself, what did they want to turn it into? They're complaining about, in the first paragraph we read, that it had African or Negro features, right? That was racist because it had typical, right? One, we know we're not African, but regardless, so-called black features. Why would that be racist if that's what they look like? I'm not going to change an image of Benjamin Franklin because he has a pointy nose and slit lips, no lips, right? He has undeveloped features, which is typical of the so-called Caucasian. So we're going to change that because it's offensive? Like, make it make sense, right? But anyways, the image obscures the fact that all black people are different and instead implies something exotic, some sort of wildness. Oh boy, yo. Some sort of wildness. Listen to the wording. It's a racist image and it has no place in today's world. Does every so-called black person look this way? No, right? But we know that as black folk, so-called black people. But why are Caucasians taking it upon themselves to try to change how we should look? The people who created this were so-called black, these images of themselves, because they were the ruling families. That's what nobody wants to address in this article so far. They're not addressing, well, who made those? The people that you see on those statues made them. They made them of themselves. Right? So if they didn't deem it racist, why are you so concerned unless you want to cover something up, unless you're trying to hide something. But this is why they use or radicalizing race. They're not even radicalizing it because they want to help so-called black people. They're doing these things because they want to destroy who we are. They want to destroy our image. We cannot be a people if we're calling ourselves a color. Race denotes a culture. They go hand in hand. You cannot have a race by a color. You have to have a nationality, a name, a tribe, lineage. That's what gives you power, and that's what they want to strip from you. So it's up to us as so-called black men to go into the annals of history and sift through like an archaeologist, pass this on to our children, and then they pass it on to their children, right? So on and so forth. That's how we change everything, and that's how we bring back a proper culture. We're the only people on planet Earth without a culture. You have to ask yourself why. The most gifted, most talented people on planet Earth are moving around here soullessly almost, without a culture. Language, customs, holidays or holy days in our case, food customs, diet, garbs, right? Outfits that we wear, clothing, and so on and so forth. So let's keep going. So they say, but the assessment leaves many in Coburg shaking their heads in disbelief. One local woman asks if Ruther and Archie just have a little bit too much time on their hands up in Berlin. I agree. These motherfuckers is bugged out. They got way too much damn time on their hands to be worried about this. But there's an underlying agenda, and that's why they're pushing it. Another resident said the more is part of what Coburg is all about. And that is the way that it should stay. I agree. Down at the mayor's office, the tone is similarly undiplomatic, with the whole debate dismissed as pointless. After all, how can anybody speak of Coburg as racist, given that the patron saints of the town, a figure of veneration, is black? Thank you. Let's find out who this is. Okay, it's another woman, and she's right on point by questioning the two women above, the two bugged out chicks, Alicia and somebody else. But it's hilarious. Even she's questioning this shit. Like, how could this be racist if this patron is one of the saints of the town? This person is indigenous to this area. This person has historical value to this area. These are the ancients of Germany. So how could we be doing something racist by keeping this around if the person is black? And they don't look like a slave to me. But let's continue. Honor or discrimination. Honor and reverence are the also terms used by cultural scientists. Hubertus Habel, he wrote his doctorate on urban symbols and cultural history in Coburg. He had also dug deeply into the background of the Moor and is convinced that the figure symbolizes Saint Maurice. Agreed. That's exactly who it is. A black African, no. But you see what I'm talking about, brothers? Like, they try to throw you off. They agree that these people existed in this town, in these regions, but they're labeling them black African to what? Remove them from being indigenous to that area or that land, or the rulers, right? The landlords. The landlord means, so what we have modernly today, lords of the land, which is what the so-called black people were in Europe. But they try to throw you off by calling them African, right? And things like that. Africa's a continent, with hundreds of countries, hundreds of and thousands of tribes all throughout. So that still doesn't denote the race, even if you want to say that they came from Africa, which they didn't. It says a black African Christian is most likely right, because during this time, this was during the Habsburg dynasty of Germany, and the Habsburgs were Roman Catholics. They were pushing Catholicism, right? So this goes back to Constantine and the Holy Roman Empire, Eastern Rome, Byzantine Empire. They were all into Catholicism. This is where we get Christianity from. So that part is correct, but that still wasn't his nationality. That was religion. But anyways, a black African Christian legionary who was executed for his commitment to his faith. This is why Habel believes that the Moor in Coburg's crest is absolutely inoffensive because of the esteem and high regard that it expresses for the saint. And that's true. It does show esteem, right? This person does not look like a slave. This person does not look like a peasant, right? Let's get down further. Alicia Archie responds by asking, how can people talk of honor when a racist image is used to represent the figure? What we do know is that with the passing of time, the image of Maurice changed substantially. Perhaps the saint who apparently came from Egypt. Now they just pulling shit out their ass. Came from Egypt. Perhaps he came from Egypt. Really? But anyways, was not even black. Wow. And it was only in the Middle Ages that the image of a dark-skinned Maurice became more prevalent in Europe. Wow. And this is the bugged out person right here. And they're calling her an Afro-German politician. This is Lady Alicia Archie. She thinks it's racist. And she's quote unquote of Afro descent, right? Whatever that means. Most likely of Hamitic stock somewhere in Africa. And of course, most likely her father or mother, one of the two, is so-called Caucasian. All right, bugged out. Don't even know what she's talking about. She's saying perhaps that this person might have came from Egypt. She has no historical backing with what she's saying, no empirical data. She's just speaking out her ass. And this is why it's up to you so-called black men to reestablish your history. You be in control of that. This is crazy. Might have been from Egypt. But anyways, he first appeared in Coburg's coat of arms at the end of the 16th century. So we're talking the 1500s. Name me the Egyptians that came over to this region. Miss Alicia Archie. And you know, she's not even really so-called black, meaning of our stock. Even if she has a so-called black father, it's most likely of Hamitic descent. Because a lot of the people that are quote-unquote colored over there in Europe today, from England to Germany, France, etc., a lot of them are not the people of Europe that I'm speaking of that were black that ruled. A lot of them are new immigrants that came in waves with a lot of the Africans, so-called Africans, moving to Europe in the 1900s. So a lot of this is not even coming from somebody of our stock. But let's keep going. History and cliches, a sense of traditions and racist tropes. The debate on the rights and wrongs of the Moor has triggered a huge controversy. Well, we know exactly why. And Coburg is not the only place in Germany to be wrestling with such differences. So, I don't want to make this article too in depth, but you know, it just makes you laugh and just realize, like, wow, like the lengths that they go to hide our history. And with that being said, let's segue into why they want to destroy this even more, or destroy these images even more. So this right here is a picture of an Indian, a so-called black Indian, the Aboriginals of America, also depicted as Negro. Dressed just like the Indians and the Aboriginals. I don't know what tribe this person is from or whatever, but we can clearly tell that it's an Indian. And this is over there in Europe, in Germany. You may be asking yourself why. Well, because there was a lot of so-called black Aboriginal Indians of the Americas who were sold as slaves to Europe, believe it or not. And I'll go into that topic another day when I have more time. But just showing you these images that are over there, telling the history that I'm talking about. Let's find out why they don't like this even more, though. This is a German beer company. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. You know what? Fuck it. Let me try. Siet, Morin, Das, Vorarlberger Bier. Y'all know my German is horrible, but I'm working on it. But anyways, this is a German beer company. And as you notice, is a so-called black man. So-called black boy right there, right? To this day. And this was established in 1834. So we were well on our way out of these regions in Europe. And with that being said, they still were using these images to create these German beers or different products with our faces on them. Something to think about. And with that, I wanted to jump over into memoirs of the Secret Services of John Mackey. And this is a really good book you guys should get. You guys can get it on Amazon. Not too expensive. Where they go into, I believe, the 1600s, around that time, and even early 1700s of Europe. And they describe what these different dukes, kings, and queens look like. So one of them I wanted to talk about was the Charles Duke of Somerset. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he was a duke during the reign of King Charles II. So let's go ahead and find out what he looked like. This is England, by the way. He is of a middle stature, well-shaped, a very black complexion, a lover of music and poetry, of good judgment, but by reason of great hesitation in his speech. So, and he's about 42 years old. So, more proof that we were in Europe all the way up until the 1600s right here. I believe this is this time period. But let's find out how the so-called Caucasian wants to change it, or wants to change, or how they depict how this person looked. Charles Duke of Somerset. Let's see their version of him. Wow. Right? The disrespect. But it's not up to them to try to teach us. It's up to us to teach ourselves, to correct the errors that we were taught, right? They're in rulership, the so-called Caucasian. With them being in rulership, they're gonna make everything in history look like them. Anything of noble status, of power. That's just what they do, right? They're the border of wickedness that the Bible speaks of. And I'm not even talking about all so-called Caucasians. I'm talking about the quote-unquote elites, the ones in power. They're the ones who go out there with a lie and give us nonsense like this. Look at this bullshit. And of course, I got a little black boy looking like a servant, but anyways, let's get to another one. Actually, I think I'm done with that one. This is going to lead me to Kevin Hart. And I was going to make him the vocal point of the whole subject of this video today, but I kind of got carried away with wanting to going about Germany. And I'm glad I did that first. I am glad I started off with that. And Kevin Hart ends up playing, he ends up playing a quote-unquote black noble in the sport of jousting, which was in early Europe, and in particularly England. And why it's significant is because Kevin Hart plays this comedy role, right? As being a jouster in the sport of jousting. And let's find out why they had him in there and what are they really trying to tell us. So this is the video of Kevin Hart jousting, right? And I don't want to play it because I don't want to get hit with a copyright. Trying to avoid that as my channel is very new. But the significance of this steel right here is the coat of arms, right? This black eagle is known as the Habsburg symbol for the black dynasty, so-called black dynasty of Germany. The Habsburgs were a family of so-called black people who ruled Germany. And this was a symbol that they used. So let's find out where it came from and why is he wearing it. This is the original paint, one of the original paintings of him. And this is Henry VI, I believe, on the horse right here, who was also a so-called black man. Kevin Hart, and why he's wearing that coat of arms specifically. This is just my opinion. This is just my perspective. But there's a hidden reason why. They're mocking us. So, the last name Hart. We discussed these last names in the last video I did, where we had the so-called black people getting on these boats and being shipped off as servants to the Caribbean, to North America, coming from Ireland and Scotland, with these Scottish and Irish last names. And so we basically proved in that video that so-called black people, we have our actual last names. The Caucasian has ours. We don't have theirs, they have ours. Further proof. The surname Hart was first found in Bavaria. This is in Germany, right? Which is why when you type in Kevin Hart's last name on his site called House of Names, the first place that has its origin is Germany. So let's find out exactly where. The surname Hart was first found in Bavaria, where the name was anciently associated with the tribal conflicts of the area. They declared allegiances to many nobles and princes of early history, lending their influence and struggles for power and status within the region. They branched into many houses, and their contributors were sought by many leaders in their search for power. The most important of these branches was that seated at Grabenstadt, who were raised to the rank of cavaliers in 1579. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? The last name Hart is of German origin. Now, what's also interesting, right, is Kevin Hart's last name being of German origin, as we know. It also, Kevin Hart himself is from Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, right? The black Germans, or the Palatinate Boers, that moved to the Americas around 1710, or at least started coming here in large numbers around that year, because they had prior been moving over here in waves. In Europe during this time, there were famines, there was pestilence, obviously the Black Plague, aka the bubonic plague, the Dark Ages, right? This is how you know it's talking about so-called black people, right? But I don't want to get too deep into that. But my point is this. This is where a lot of the German people moved into Pennsylvania. There's a book I'm going to bring out in my next video, Lord willing, I have time for it, where they describe thousands and thousands of Germans who Benjamin Franklin described as what? Being swarthy, right? That they moved to the Americas, and then particularly Pennsylvania in large numbers. Also Virginia, but in Pennsylvania, New York, and also, I believe it was North Carolina. So we have Philadelphia or Pennsylvania called what today? The city of brotherly love. Is it a coincidence that Kevin Hart has a German last name and they have him in a German coat of arms, the Black Eagle of the Habsburg dynasty? Is that a coincidence? Things that make you go, right? It can't be that far-fetched for me to be led to this conclusion that Kevin Hart most likely is of German origin, German ancestry. But I don't want to keep y'all too long. I hope this was edifying for y'all. And I'm going to just close it out with a scripture for y'all. Psalm chapter 83. And we're going to start at verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Hidden ones, y'all. That's who we are. The crafty counsel, talking about the other nations. They came against us and ripped our culture away and made us hidden ones. They took our last names and made us hidden ones. They took our culture and made us hidden ones. And with that, brothers, y'all have a good one. Stay vigilant and peace.